Well, good afternoon to everybody watching on LinkedIn, and good afternoon to all of those here in the room. We'll get a chance to introduce ourselves quickly, but thank you for attending today, and thank you for joining us on this Ribbon for Travel event, where we want to just raise the awareness of mental health in travel. I'm overwhelmed by the amount of people who join us today on the panel, so thank you very much to Emma helping us there to get these people to join us today. And Emma, why don't we start with you with a quick introduction, and then we'll just go around the room and get people to introduce themselves. And I think very interestingly, because of the topic today, we want to talk about people who have left the industry and how that worked for them, and what happened in that process. I think it would be good to also for the others to just quickly tell us where they were and where they are now in an industry perspective. You don't have to mention a company name if that doesn't work for you. So thank you very much for joining us. Emma, how are you, and welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me to be on here. Yep, I'm Emma Gregory. I am one half of Urban Berry Recruitment. We specialise in recruiting for the travel industry, primarily in the corporate travel sector. And obviously for the last 18 months, we've been really busy helping people who have obviously been displaced by COVID and trying to help them either get into other sectors, realise their potential and work on their transferable skill set.
Thank you very much, Emma, and welcome, Alex. Your timing is good. I realize, Alex, you are pushed for time, so you're going to leave in a minute, but we're just doing the rounds. We've just started with Emma, so we'll get to you in a second. I don't know if there's any specific order, but let's keep with the ladies. Megan, welcome. You want to introduce yourself quickly?
Sure. Hi, my name is Megan Bearce. I'm a licensed mental health professional here in the United States. I also do some coaching around career change, and one of the niches in my therapy practice has been over the last several years helping road warriors and frequent business travelers. So the overlap of that with workplace mental health really made it exciting for me to be able to join today. So thanks for having me.
Thank you for being in. I realize it's early for you as well, so thank you for that. So Chris, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, Rian. So I'm Chris Illingworth. I worked within the travel industry for over 20 years on the B2B leisure travel side. So working for GTA, Kuoni, most recently working for a US tour operator, sending groups to the UK, Ireland, which then stopped, full stop really with COVID, as many people's roles did. And I've just recently moved into a role in the relocation industry. So that's international relocation of clients moving for jobs.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chris. Andy?
Hi, everybody. I'm Andy Weston. My background, I spent 23 years mainly with Hogg Robinson and then with Amex following the takeover. So as well as being in the travel industry all my life up until New Year's Eve of last year, I was more or less a one company person as well. So for me, the change has been not only changing industries, but completely changing organisations as well. So I now work for a company called HCL, and the bit within HCL that I work with does life insurance and pensions administration in the UK.
Thank you very much. I just want to mention that if you also have LinkedIn open on your same computer, you should mute that because you're going to get an echo in that case, because we are broadcasting to LinkedIn. Matt, welcome. How are you? You want to just introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you very much, Rian. Hi, everyone. I'm Matt Bonnaci, and I've been in the travel industry was in the travel industry for 24 years. I was made redundant during the pandemic and moved over to the logistics sector, and I now work for a fantastic organisation called CitySpring.
Very nice. Thank you. And David?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So my name's David Hill. So very similar experience to Matt. So I was 13 years at TMC, Flight Centre Travel Group. Then obviously moved on to Virgin Trains. So I did a corporate sales account management role there. And then obviously I was in the process of moving jobs. I'd got another job offer from another travel management company just as the pandemic was hitting. So awful timing. And then unfortunately, they weren't able to follow through on the offer, just given the financial constraints. So I found myself without work, and obviously no jobs in the particular sector really available. So I had a similar experience to Andy as well. I ended up working in a life insurance business in sales, so an industry I previously knew something about. But now I find myself working in a logistics sector. So I'm working for a company called Anyvan for business. It's been an interesting journey, but one I'm really enjoying.
Fantastic. And Alex, welcome.
Thank you, Rian. Alex MacPhail. I'm a former airline pilot with South African Airways. I was an Air Force pilot in the South African Air Force before that, so 22 years of flying. And last year it all came to a grinding halt, not only for COVID reasons, but certainly that was the final nail in the coffin. Had to find myself in a corner and had to reinvent myself, much like you all did too. I had a great opportunity and got involved in logistics too. When I was delivering wine for myself in my own little car, I was handing out boxes of wine. I managed to convince a few people that they might also want to do that. And I no longer drove the wine. I ended up having the business that supplied people driving wine in their own cars. That turned into a business of supplying labor per hour to the logistics company. It's still running, and it's 14 months later. The next business then started shortly after that, getting involved in customer care and telecom. So it's been a fascinating journey. It's been wonderful with great opportunities and a few things aligned at the right time, together with putting myself out there. And there is life after the airline industry, and there's a lot of great learnings from within the industry that can be used outside of the industry too.
Wow. So from pilot to bootlegger, right, Alex?
And podcaster.
Okay,
just doing a podcast interview with the mic and the earphones.
Yes.
So I just switched straight in.
Yes. Before we just get a bit more into that, I just wanted to say thank you for doing this today. Emma and I talked about this a lot. This is not easy for you guys to come on here and talk about this transition you had to go through, and I just want to say thank you. And also for taking part in this, because there are people definitely going through what you have gone through, and it's difficult for them. And that's what we want to talk about today, to make sure that they hear there is a positive side to this. So there is an option for us. And yes, it's difficult. So again, just to say thank you. Alex, I'm aware of your time, so if we do focus on you a little bit at the beginning, that's why, because you have to leave. But Emma, again, when we prepped for this call and we talked about it a lot, you did say that you spend many calls with many of those on this screen here today, because Matt, Andy, David, and Chris, I believe. So I suppose, obviously, it wasn't just all business, right? You had to talk there. There was a lot of emotion in those calls, etc. I don't want to, it's not for you to say, but I mean, how difficult was this for you to see this happening with the people that you've placed, I would assume, and worked with for a long time?
Really difficult, because, like I said, a lot of them were people that we've known for a long time, people that we've placed in jobs, or just, clients. Some of them were clients, that all of a sudden were calling us and going, I've been made redundant. I don't know what to do. Been in the job for 20 years. For us as a business as well, we're in travel recruitment. Our business also came to a grinding halt. So we had a choice. What were we going to do here? Were we going to disappear for 18 months and come back when things were rosier and business was busy again? Or were we going to stand out front and support people that we've known for years? And that's what we decided to do. We spent a long time not being paid for the work that we were doing as well, talking to people and just helping them with CVs and support. But, for us, it certainly took its toll on us as well, because it was really hard hearing some stories and hearing the desperation in people's voices. They really didn't know what to do, and the disappointment when a job that they'd been going for didn't work out. It were dealing with the rejection, helping them overcome that as well. It was it was tough. This is not the sort of thing that we were used to doing either. You know, it wasn't part of our job before, but all of a sudden was our job every day. So yeah, it wasn't easy. Where's he gone?
I don't know. We've lost we've lost the host.
Oh my God, I've bored him already.
Well, you mentioned there. Maybe I can just jump in there, Emma. You mentioned the emotion, and it certainly, I'm not sure if it's all over the industry, but there is something special about the travel industry. And I was relating the story to one of my guests recently, where there's Rian back. I'm just ad-libbing for you, Rian, about the emotion. Emma mentioned emotions of the journey in the last 18 odd months. For me, you can go and look at my LinkedIn profile. It's in plain sight. I was in tears the day I left. It was a 22-year career as a professional pilot, 10 in the Air Force, 12 at South African Airways. And as I handed back my uniform at the end of my journey, I think about the things that could have been, should have been, and were supposed to be, and I planned out, such simple things as doing another flight to New York City or heading off to Perth one more time, taking my son. I'd taken my eldest son twice on a trip, just, father and son trip. Those are the kind of special privileges that you get as an airline pilot. And I've got 2 more boys to follow. And the second one was about to go with me in February, and then it didn't work out. So for all those reasons, I went into the simulator one last time after I'd handed back my uniform. It was cold and dark and quiet, and I switched the lights on, and I went in there and I just sat down, and the emotions came over me. I was relating the story to a friend recently, and just telling the story 12 months later, again, I was in tears telling him the story about how I was in tears sitting in the simulator. So, there's a lot of vulnerability going on here, but there's something about the industry of travel that is more than just a job. And people talk about the passion very loosely and easily, but it's not a normal industry. You work odd hours, you work with high risk, complex industries. There's time pressures, there's all sorts of things that goes on. Certainly once you're in the aircraft and you're getting airborne, there's time zones and there's weather and there's a sense of camaraderie in the crew. And when it all came to an end, it was tough. It was really, really tough. And I experienced the full range of emotions both on the day. And this was 4 months after I had done my last bit of time as an airline pilot. And also I'd already set up a business, and things were, wouldn't say stable, but there was some income coming in. So it was in a time where I was supposed to be confident and facing the world again, and I was getting humbled once more.
It was a real grieving process for a lot of people. We found that when we were speaking to them, it was the same kind of emotions that they were going through, anger, upset, disbelief, looking back at what could have been, like you say there, or what they were expecting for their future, and having to let go of that and realize that wasn't happening now. And yeah, it was, on top of the shock of it all, it was a real process that people went through. And like I say, as we spoke to them over the months, you could hear when they were at different stages in that process as well. And it was quite interesting, but difficult for many, many people.
Yeah, sorry about my connection there. Thanks for keeping the show going, guys. It's typical, isn't it? So there we go. And so, Emma, I assume there was a question there for Alex about how difficult it was. Can we also, Alex, before you go, talk about what surprised you about being outside the industry the most? Was there, of course, as a pilot, I assume you have a fair amount of extra skills that not many of us have, and that would be applicable. But what was the biggest surprise for you to be suddenly outside of the industry?
Oh, surprise! I'm getting caught off guard a moment. Yeah, I feel like I'm back at Toastmasters and I'm doing an impromptu session. But the one thing that was a pleasant surprise was, as an airline pilot, you have to operate on your own. You don't go to work and there's your desk. You've got a little pigeonhole box where you're going to get your payslip and your letters of whatever, the company correspondence. So there is no office for you. For you, the office is that aircraft. You get airborne, you take it to another part of the world, you get off, you switch off, you go home. But there's twice a year you have to go into the simulator and you have to prepare. So that self-discipline and motivation that has to come from within, because nobody tells you you're in the sim in 14 days' time, you better start studying today. And tomorrow you better do the technical of the hydraulic system. And the next day you better run through your SOPs. That has to come from within. And obviously it's 20 years in the making. But when you get to that point, that sort of discipline that is within you can carry out elsewhere. And I found that was a pleasant surprise, that Now I have a whole new setup. I have to organize 12 people to go and do deliveries, and I have to make sure this one's going in that direction. Has he got the right wine, the right wine for the dispatch? And then it became the next level. And what I noticed was that I had been in a position of authority. I was a flight commander in the Air Force. I had 25 students learning to fly and 15 flying instructors teaching those students, etc. But I haven't really experienced that same level of being a leader or a manager, as it were, in a corporate environment, or maybe a head of department in the academic environment. And this was a test for me to say, can I arrange people, and what systems would I need to communicate well? And what we used to do in the airline was to say, next Thursday, we're going to London for a couple of nights. There'll be a little WhatsApp group with the 4 pilots on board. And they would say, we'll meet here. This is the plan. If anyone's got any ideas, I'm going to the theater on the West End. I've got some water skiing lined up if anyone's interested. We used it as a bit of a communication tool just to get everyone on the same page before the flight started. And while you were overseas, I'm heading down to town if anyone wants to join me for a lunch. And so I just took that as an opportunity. So I took a WhatsApp group and I put a bunch of people on the WhatsApp group and basically ran a business from a WhatsApp group. And the communication of that, sharing the information and sort of being open and vulnerable and saying, look, I'm not sure what's happening. This is the way I see it unfolding. If there's any more information, I'll let you know. So that's a process I used, and it came from my experience of being in the aviation industry.
Very nice, very nice. David, Andy, Matt, Chris, I mean, for you, I mean, I wrote down some numbers here, 20, 23 years, 24 years, etc., of being in that industry. What was, a surprise being on the other side in a different industry?
I think for me, it's the marketing of yourself. You have a knowledge, you have an idea of what you can do. You've been an operations manager or director, and you've done these special projects. And you can speak in a certain language when you're going for a travel job that everyone understands. And you've got to learn to market yourself outside the industry. You've got to go to more basic principles and think, how would somebody who doesn't have that background understand what you've done?
Yeah,
I think for me, it was definitely the apprehension about going into the unknown, into an industry, or having to learn something new again. When same like most of you guys are all very experienced in travel and worked sort of in travel roles, corporate travel operations, account management before, and then going to have to learn a new industry, I felt like was quite a challenge after knowing you travel like it's your bread and butter. You know what you do here in this instance, you know what you do in that instance. But one thing that I sort of uncovered is that really, once you've got a baseline of that knowledge, there really are like a large amount of transferable skills. And there's also the way travel companies are run. And I'm sure Emma will know, speaking to loads of different types of travel companies and businesses. But a lot of the stuff that we pick up working in travel roles are really transferable. You can use them in so many companies. Just getting that industry knowledge, really.
I think you've hit the nail on the head, David. I think when I was going through the recruitment process, they were openly saying to me, we're looking for people that haven't got life insurance and pensions background, because, and it's a bit, I hope I'm not going to upset anybody here, a bit like travel in that, we see the same people churning through and through. So we don't get any fresh ideas. We don't get any new faces. So even now, I mean, I've been here 7 months now. So, just finished my probation last month. Brilliant. Even now, do I feel a bit of an outsider and a fraud? Absolutely, because I'm working alongside people that have got 20 plus years of pensions and life insurance background. Do I think sometimes, oh my God, they're going to fire me out? They're going to realise I don't know anything about it every day. But every day that I go through, I learn a little bit more. I've got a good team around me that are fully supportive. I've got a manager that has got really, really strong background in the industry. So he's mentoring me and helping me. So the support is there. If you find the right company, the support will always be there for you, which will allow you to grow and flourish.
Yeah, I second that, Andy, massively. I mean, I've, coming into the logistics sector, I've come into a leadership role, and for me, it's similar to what I've done previously. So the managing of the people and that type of thing, and generally what the role entails, the skill set is there. But when you couple that with being a new organisation plus learning the product and learning how that company runs, and it's from my understanding as well, the organisation I work for is a totally different beast to any other organisation within its industry as well. So coupled in with that, it's an absolute beast of trying to learn all of this. Sometimes you do get that that feeling where you feel like, God, am I going to get found out? People. But then, as you say, my boss is extremely supportive. She's extremely knowledgeable, very approachable, and she didn't hire me for my knowledge. My knowledge in the industry. She hired me for what I had done previously, the skill set I'd attained previously, and that was only because of working and coming from that sector, and the companies that I worked for in the travel industry taught me those skill sets. They taught me how to run a business. So that's how I've been able to obtain that skill set and continue on my journey as well.
Megan, Andy just touched there on the subject of the, he didn't call it that, but I mean, it's relating to that imposter syndrome, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what are you being believed? Is that something you see when somebody transitions outside of that sort of space to a new space?
Yep, that's a big one. And a lot of it plays into just kind of that overall anxiety, right? And the two main parts of that are fear and control. So when you transition to this new career, new company, new, all of these things are new, it's pretty natural that fear is there and things are out of your control. But I'm always the type of person that likes to look at kind of the positive pieces of it. So how can you reframe that? So for example, some of you have said you've done this, been in this industry or this roles for, close to 20 years. So now is this an opportunity for you to kind of reinvent yourself a little bit, kind of take yourself out of that pigeonhole and try something new or something in a different way that maybe you couldn't before in your former industry? But definitely the imposter syndrome is a very big thing, if you're transitioning within your own industry. Yeah. The one thing I just wanted to mention real quickly before you guys jump back into it, I'm curious if any of you felt this where, a lot of times in the travel industry, you're on the road a lot, right? You're road warriors, you have weird hours, long trips here and there. That transition back to being home all the time, around your family in a different way that you're used to. That's a lot of the stuff that I work with therapy clients, is how do you make that transition back and forth? And I know for a lot of people, even with the pandemic, not travel industry, like all of a sudden being home all the time was a source of a lot of stress and conflict for a lot of people. So
where did I push the buzzer? Where did I push the buzzer? Excuse me. Yes, Megan. Wow. I mean, you touched on it. As an international airline pilot, there's two things that I want to talk about. That one, I was away sort of 4 days a week. So gone for 4, home for 3, gone for 4, home for 3, gone for 5, home for 2, that kind of a schedule. Half the month, it's essentially you're away in these chunks of time. Now it's work from home, at home, homeschooling the children. It is nonstop. And I've been doing this kind of traveling lifestyle for 15 plus years. So a major, major, major adjustment for me and my colleagues as well. It is massive. And there's a lot to take on. And you don't get through it quickly, easily, and still getting to grips with it. And when there was an opportunity to get a bit of remote working space, I went for it, because to just get that bit of a break from the house was the one thing.
So Alex, it's probably easier to land a plane than to do homeschooling, right?
We need to speak to my wife about the homeschooling. She runs that baby. But yeah, but I also wanted to mention, this thing about two things that came up a moment ago. One, in my team, at some point I had about 40 odd employees, and there was about at least a third of them, 12 plus people from Flight Centre. I had somehow managed to connect with one of them who recommended it to all them, their colleagues. And I found Flight Centre, particularly travel agent type of travel industry people, with a company like Flight Centre, they are incredibly hard workers, and it's almost like a proving ground. Airlines over the years have always taken a big chunk of people from the militaries. That number has tapered off as militaries are taking fewer pilots now. However, it's a proving ground, and you can see that if someone's gone through the process in the middle of an Air Force training, they can pretty much know it's a known quantity. And I would like to say the same about a Flight Centre employee. It's a known quantity in a good way, that if they've spent 3, 4, 5 years at Flight Centre, they'll get a look in my books any day of the week, no problem.
Well, you've got some ex-flighties on the screen, right? There's a few ex-flighties. Absolutely.
And a last topic I wanted to just touch on there, Rian, that came up was this. I think Chris mentioned that. How do you sell yourself? And that's what I saw a lot of my colleagues. You know, they would have a LinkedIn profile and nice photos, the uniform, etc. And their tagline would be a wide body captain or Airbus 350 instructor or international airline pilot or Airbus 320, 330, 340 rated person. Those are wonderful things that only mean stuff to pilots and recruitments in the recruiting in the piloting industry. They don't mean much to someone else. So how do you then teach them to share what skills they have learned in the industry and repackage them into something that's transferable to a bank or insurance or a butchery? And it's things like time management. I mean, every single day that a pilot goes to work, they have to depart on time within minutes. I mean, how do you spend a 20-year career being on time to the minute every time you went to work? I mean, that's a feather in the cap. People management, fatigue management, 3 a.m. across the Atlantic Ocean during a storm and a technical challenge with a passenger that can't breathe properly. Those are things that you manage, and you need to sell those stories. You can't say, I fly Airbus. You need to say, I manage people. I manage time. I can organize systems. I make decisions. I can organize fatigue. I can run a schedule. Those are the things that we need to celebrate, and I'm sure all industries have it. And if you can break it down into the smaller units of what those skills are, people can relate.
Yeah, excellent points, Alex. Excellent points. I mean, we know that people on the travel agency side of things and the TMC side, they're very good at dealing with incredible stress and just lots of changes and challenges to the industry all the time. I mean, the travel industry is incredibly, stressed out, and they just deal with it. It's just amazing.
It's actually amazing. It is amazing, and we did a bit of recruitment actually for some customer service roles that were outside of travel, and they started saying to us, when we see people from the travel industry, they are head and shoulders above other sectors in terms of customer service, their confidence levels, they know exactly what to do, and they were like, God, we're really starting to look at this as a sector now where we should be targeting people, because the skills that you learn in the industry are absolutely invaluable. The people that you deal with, the situations that you have to deal with, are so useful and beneficial to other organisations. So yeah, it's true. There's definitely some good, there's a good reputation with the industry now, more so than it ever was before. I think people understand it a lot more now.
Thanks, Emma. I just see if there's a lot of comments coming through. I just want to point out, Andy is also reminding us that I think it was, I don't know who was talking about the LinkedIn. It was you, Alex, that said, what you need to put on your LinkedIn profile. We've been working with some travel industry people on a Wednesday. We do a LinkedIn group where we talk about their profiles, etc. And that specific thing you've just mentioned there, Alex, comes up all the time, where they say, this is the job that I did. And we go, yes, how do you talk about that in a skill set manner, right? This is, I'm able to do X. It doesn't mean, you don't say, I was the head of this or the product manager of this. So yeah, that works quite well. There's a lot of shout outs there. Thank you for all the comments. It's really encouraging, and thank you for the positive vibes we're getting there. Alex, if you have to drop off, thank you for your contribution. But by all means, stay till you need to leave. But if you have to go, so thank you very much.
Thanks for inviting me, Ryan. All the best.
Yes, thank you. Keep well.
Thank you.
Just talking there about that transition and, the difficulty. I mean, Alex was talking about the fact that he actually, sat in that simulator and he cried. I mean, there obviously were some dark days during that realization that you have to leave the industry and that you have to go somewhere else. Where did you find, positive support and encouragement in that process? Who did you turn to? Was it your colleagues? Was it somebody else? Anybody want to comment on that? Where did you go for a bit of support?
If I can go first.
Please, Andy.
Chris, to be fair. So Chris was one of the first people that I spoke to. So we had a bit of a background. We've known each other for a number of years through kids, partners, dogs. I was fully aware of what Chris had already been gone through before I got there myself. So Chris was a great help to me. Chris, what have you tried? What are you doing? Any recommendations? So talking to people that are going through exactly the same thing as you is a huge plus. Emma was fantastic. She didn't know me at all. Phoned her up. Emma, you must have some jobs in travel, mustn't you? There must be hundreds of them. And of course, obviously there weren't. But Emma was somebody that was just prepared to spend a bit of time listening to me. We touched on it before. people were uncertain. Where do I go? What do I do next? Oh, Emma's a recruitment person. She will have all the answers. Of course, she didn't have all the answers, but she was a
No pressure.
very, very good listener. And sometimes that's what people need. So, I would say speak to friends, speak to wives, partners, husbands, don't bottle it all up because you can't deal with it all on your own.
Therapists.
Therapists, absolutely. But one thing from travel, and I'm sure the guys will second this, is it is quite a close network of people. So you do get to know a lot of people within. And I think probably as individuals, we've definitely not been going through all of this on our own. There were a lot of people that left where I was before at the same time. So I kept in touch with some of those. My old teams, we all spoke. Could I help them? No, not always. But as with Emma, I would listen. If I could give them a bit of advice, I would. But I think the important thing is don't try and take it all on yourself because, it will become a burden just on you then. So be open and speak to as many different people as you can.
Can I add one more thing to that?
Please.
So in the coaching process, we're trying to strategize how to touch the most people as far as like old contacts and old people you've interacted with. So to kind of honor the grief of leaving your business or leaving your industry, you could go through and kind of think back on people who like really impressed you during your time together, who you really enjoyed working with, and just send them a quick little note just saying thank you for what you showed me, thank you for working with me, some sort of note of gratitude to honor the closing. But then you've also on the backside reconnected with them, and now they know, they remember you, what your interactions were, your skill set, and that now you're looking for a new job. So it's kind of a twofold, honoring the closure of one thing and potentially opening up a new thing. So,
Great advice.
Just like to add that. Sorry, Rian. I just want what Megan was saying there is totally. And one thing that I've experienced, so maybe I've had a slightly different situation to Matt and Andy, in that I'm now in my second job after travel, is that when I was obviously very nervous about transitioning to an industry, but what I've actually seen is working in two businesses is how, from my knowledge base I've taken from travel and how things are run operationally and also account management side of things, some of the other industries are nowhere near as advanced as what travel is and what things is going on. And I'm sure Emma will know if she started to recruit to other industries as well. And that's probably why she's had people say these people from travel are amazing. I just want to say to people really that you should have a lot of confidence in your sort of upbringing and, your history from working in travel, because you're going to probably find you'll go into other industries and they'll be like, wow, these people are so efficient. They can put all these processes in place. Didn't even know that they've revolutionized things. I certainly found in my experiences that I was just doing stuff that I thought was basic things, putting structure in place. Particularly the first business where I left, that had a really big impact on the business. So I would say people can take a lot of confidence in the fact that they have previously worked in travel.
Yeah. Shout out to travel. Well done. I mean, that is nice to hear. And so thanks for saying that. Sorry, I was interrupting someone.
Sorry, Mia. I was just going to say, it's not always as simple as it's a straight decision to leave the travel industry. Certainly my searches were still going on in both travel and outside travel. And I ended up getting 2 offers pretty much in the same week, one within travel and one outside travel, and made the decision at that point rather than, grieving, I'm leaving travel and I'm going to try and find something else. It was a little bit more mixed than that.
And so what made you decide to not take the travel job, to do that job? Was it to just, push that through and deal with that, or?
It was partly the interview process, which had excited me about the new role. The role within travel was something I was interested in, but just didn't quite excite me the same way.
Yeah, I think when I was speaking
that decision.
When I was speaking to Chris during this time, I could hear the difference in you when you were talking about the one you really wanted. And as you went through the process, you were really, really excited by the prospect of something new. And that was great to hear, because it wasn't like you were having to take a job that you thought okay, it's just a job that's come along, but it's in travel, I'll take it. You went for something that you wanted, and you could see how you could fit into that. And it was really good to hear, because I know you had a difficult journey as well, as did everybody. But, you know, there was times that it was really tough and you didn't know what was happening, you know, all the dealing with the rejections and just not hearing back from places. As with everybody, it got to people, didn't it? And it was really difficult. But when I spoke to you and you were at that point of making your decision, I think it was so good to hear how excited you were about almost challenging yourself as well, to realise you could do something else.
Yeah, and I would say that's how it worked out. You know, I've probably not worked as hard in the last 3 months as I had for 10 years before in travel, because you know a job, there's a comfort level in a job in an industry that you know you can slot in. When you're striving to achieve in something new, it's a bigger challenge. It's a more interesting thing to do.
And have you all surprised yourselves with how you've done, like how well you have adapted into a new environment? Do you think you've been pleasantly surprised with how you've done that after such a long time doing something else?
I think the biggest challenge for me was initially starting in February. I didn't actually get to meet anybody I worked with until May. So that was that was the real hard part. Is, I'm sitting here at home, I'm at the end of the garden, so no interaction with anybody up at the house and no real interaction with anybody in the office as well. So as well as trying to say, well, I'm trying to learn all these things, not meeting anybody was difficult, because you would normally you would speak to people in the office, you would have a chat. I'm not sure about this, can you help me? Everything had to become, okay, I'll just book a half-hour meeting so you can talk me through this. So, we are now slowly getting back into the office, and I'm in once, twice a week. That's been a massive improvement, not only for me getting out of the house and seeing people, but my knowledge has gone like that, because I can just grab people for a quick 5-minute chat. So that was really, really challenging. But I think I'm getting to that point now where, going back to what I was saying before, I don't necessarily feel like I'm a fraud now, and I'm understanding what I'm doing. I'm understanding the industry. It does take a little bit of time, but I think for me, the challenge has completely invigorated me. Was I tired in travel? Probably yes, if I was being honest. I probably wouldn't have seen that at the time, but looking back now, coming out and doing something completely different has given me a breath. It's been like a breath of fresh air for me.
Oh.
Very nice. I just want to say hi to Jane Morrow there, who says she has to leave. No worries, Jane. This will be recorded, so you can watch the rest of it later. But thanks for joining us. Yeah, that's very interesting, Andy. Sorry, Matt, were you going to say something about that?
I was just going to say I can resonate with Andy, certainly on the last part there, where you're sort of thinking, I didn't realise it, but actually I probably was. Now I look back, very comfortable in travel, and I think, as Chris said, I could almost probably do the job with my eyes closed. To be perfectly honest with you, I've been doing it for so long, and I didn't realise how, I wouldn't say tired of travel, but how relaxed in the role I'd become, to the point where I could do it quite easily and earn reasonably good money at the same time. But now in this role, I'm actually working probably 4 or 5 times as hard as I've actually worked in the last 10, 15 years, maybe, because it's a totally new sector. And not only that, I think what I've learned is, as well, again, touching on some things that Andy said, with regards to my induction process into the organisation, I learned from that, and what I've been able to do is adapt that for other people that I'm hiring when they come into the organisation, and say to them, well, look, this is what I did, and I have got zero knowledge about this sector, absolutely nothing. And so you need X amount more than what I had, and these are people that have got industry experience because of the way the organisation works, that I've realised that actually I can make a difference here, and I'm making differences, and that I'm getting their feedback, and you realise that actually by making these small changes for them and then learning from that and still adapting as you go forward, it really does help them. But it's been challenging. There's no doubt about that. but I've learned a hell of a lot, and probably more than I've learned in the last 10 years being in travel as well, I would say.
Megan, just from from your professional perspective, are there things people can do consciously to make themselves aware of focusing on those positives, especially the things we just learned about, feeling accomplishment being achieved and feeling positive about the change you've managed to do, etc. Are there, checks you can do to make sure you focus on those things rather than anything else?
Yeah, I'm a big list person. So making lists of your worries next to the things you feel like you're doing well, the positives. I use a book a lot called Do What You Are. And what I like about that is it's divided in chapters by your personality type, your Myers-Briggs letters, so INFJ or things like that. And within it, it shows all the different skill sets that personality tends to have. And so that's kind of a nice point of reference of like, okay, I'm really good at the logistics piece. What other sorts of industries or jobs might that skill set be a nice fit for? The other thing that I really find helpful for people is to kind of pay attention to when you catch yourself saying, I should know this, I should have done that. And really take a look at, is that an expectation you're putting on yourself that's maybe unrealistic given where you are in the new job, or what your society is telling you, or your expectations from your prior job based on how it was going. So that's kind of my big takeaway for you guys, is to pay attention to the shoulds, because a lot of times the shoulds don't make you feel very good.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Yeah, very good. We've got some time left, etc. I mean, I see there's a fair amount of people watching here, and I'm sure there's our industry is not out of the woods yet, so I'm sure there's still a lot of job seekers out there. Emma, I mean, what is the situation like in the market?
We're getting busier. I mean, we're getting jobs coming on, but there are people that don't want to return as well, that they feel like, someone said to me the other day that there isn't any way that they would go back. They've done a few other things in the interim and have found that they've actually been enjoying it. So we're now looking for permanent work in another sector. And yeah, I mean, it's a different industry now. Things have changed. It's not the same as what they left, and people have changed as well, and what they want from their lives now. I think there's been such a big refocus on what people actually want, and they've been able to have that time to think about that, what works for them, their families, their lifestyle. And there's a lot of people now that are saying to us, I'm not willing to compromise on that, so I'm going to stick with what I know I want to do, and quite rightly so as well. They've had a really tough time. So yes, we are getting busier, but I think that this session is really helpful for those people that want to see what it can be like outside of travel and don't want to have to just go back because a job comes up and they feel like that's all they can do. It's good to have people say, no, it's not all you can do. You have so much to give. And one of the things that I found fascinating is speaking to people who have worked in a different sector, even if it's temporarily for the last 18 months, and the opportunities that are presented themselves to them, the people that they've met, the new skills that they've developed, whether they bring them back to travel or whether they take them on somewhere else. It's been a real time of growth for a lot of people. So yeah, there's a lot of changes, and I think a lot of it is good.
If I could maybe add on a bit more to that, one thing that I've realised, and it took me a couple of months to realise this when I was conducting my job search, was that if any advice I could give to people out there that are looking at this and thinking, that maybe feeling a bit overwhelmed or a bit overawed, is that you don't need to reinvent yourself. You are already you. You are who you are. What you do need to look at, I would say that the most important thing, and I think Alex briefly touched upon this, is how you can paint yourself in a different picture, so that you are not a travel agent, or that you are not an account management in travel, or you are not a business travel specialist. It's about getting those skill sets out there and relating them to how you can have effect and how you can impact an organization. And that took me a little while to understand and grasp. Conversations that I had with Emma, I listened to varying in talks, and and discussions with people on LinkedIn as well, and looked at varying different websites and got advice on my CV, which Emma again gave me a lot of advice on my CV and things like that. And once you start doing that, you then start looking at jobs that are advertised, and you just basically you're looking at the job description, you're like, that is me, regardless of the sector. That is me. I've got that. And then it's about thinking, how can I relay that to a person if I get the opportunity to do so in an interview?
It's a lot of translation when you say Emma and Matt.
Yeah. Both. a lot. And it's about repackaging that and tailoring yourself and your CV to the job that you want and not the job that you had. It's a lot of people make the mistake of focusing themselves on what they have always done, but it's not what they're trying to achieve. So they're not highlighting the right things to somebody. So I think that's one of the pieces of advice we always gave to people, is to do that. Look at the job that you want to do and focus on what you have done that correlates with that.
Absolutely. And yeah, there's another shout out about your book, because it kind of relates to that topic, right? That you've mentioned this book, Do What You Are, right, Megan? It sounds very much like that. And I see Andrew there is saying that as well. And even for us, when we talk to people about their LinkedIn profiles, set it up so that it represents the job that you want to do, the people you want to attract. It's not it's not easy to always think like that, but comes right back to something that was said right at the start. Marketing yourself to the outside world,
That's what people really struggled with the most. They said to us, "I've been in travel for 20 years. I don't know anything else," and they really believed that, though. At the beginning, they really believed that they didn't know anything else. They would get on the phone and say, "That's all I know," and they'd already almost pigeonholed themselves straight away, saying, "I don't know anything else." And you're like, of course you know something else. And it took a long time for people to come round to that way of thinking. It wasn't an easy thing for people to do, to look at themselves in a different light, and to look at how they could be useful to another organisation. I know I spoke with Andy, Matt and Chris several times about this, and about understanding their own strengths and what they had done and how that was relevant, but it really wasn't easy for a lot of people.
I think, one final thing that really helped me was podcasts as well.
Yeah, you said,
the High Performance podcast, and Stephen Bartlett, the Diary of a CEO. Those two I found fascinating just by listening to people in different industries, when actually they were just talking about the same things generally that I did on a day-to-day basis. And that's when the penny dropped, and I sort of went, okay, got it, realise it, makes sense. Now I can translate that.
And Matt, just tell us again those two podcasts. So the one was Diary of a CEO.
The Diary of a CEO by Stephen Bartlett.
Mm-hmm.
And another is the High Performance podcast by
Damien Hughes,
Damien Hughes and Jake Humphries.
Okay, thank you very much. It's good if these resources helped you. It's good to talk about them, and maybe we'll add a comment to the post once it's up to include those as well. We don't want to reminisce. We obviously be focusing on the positives and the fact that you have succeeded, and there's so much we've learned from today about using that in a positive way, and marketing yourselves, etc. What's the one or two things that you miss the most about being outside of the travel industry? Not in the current way, but in the way it was, when you left it, right? What do you miss?
I think for me, probably the biggest thing is the people.
Okay.
And just working around, like-minded individuals. I was having to explain to one of the directors in my company the other day what Avios were and how it all works, and I was just like, "Oh my God, you don't know anything about it." Like, just obviously being around like-minded people is a big thing for me. And I guess there's just not that I don't enjoy the role I'm in now, because it's a really exciting company and there's a lot of opportunity, but I think just having the passion for being around the product that you actually really care about, I think they're probably the sort of key things that I miss. I don't know about everyone else.
Yeah, I think you're right, David. I think I've said a lot of times in meetings, you get into travel because you love travel. And that's where most, I would say 90, 95% of the industry has come that way. You don't get into relocation because you love relocation. Yeah, so it's a different passion. And that's what I miss about the travel industry is, it's full of people who love travel, who have those stories, want to talk about what's great about traveling, whether it be the journey, the destination, the places they've been.
Exactly. I think for me, what I miss about travel is, I've worked very closely with David, and I've worked closely together over the years, and the people is first and foremost. It's always the people that you get in the travel industry, and I think I probably would have enjoyed working with Andy and Chris very much so as well, by the sounds of things. But and like Chris said, the conversations you have, whether in between sort of that downtime when you've maybe got a couple of minutes and people are having a chat around the office, and you just get to talking about your holidays and where you've been and what sort of experience you've had and things you've done, and those types of conversations, because I love travel, is what I miss.
I don't know whose mic is scratching, but I apologize for the noise on the line. I don't know. There's a slight scratch here and there, but that's okay. This is not a TV broadcast. There we are. It's interesting. So yeah, I wrote that down, Chris. People get into travel because they love travel. It's so true. I mean, we had a LinkedIn post the other day about how people got into travel, and nobody planned to go into it. They went into it, because they really fell in love with it, and they never thought they would work in that industry. And it's very rare for someone to plan to go into travel, but they end up there because they love it. So very interesting. Andy, is that what you resonate with as well? Just that people and the common.
Yeah, I mean,
passion?
having been within the same organisation for 20 plus years as well, I grew up with a lot of people. So, people that got married, had kids, had good news, had bad news. It was as cliche as it was like a family, really. So, pleasing seeing people that you've worked with go on and do good things. So you miss that. So I almost feel like, and I think part of that grieving process is the end of a relationship to a degree. And effectively, now I'm starting that new relationship now. So actually that brings with it its own excitement. You get to meet new people, and where I'm working now, there's also a lot of good people, and I'm slowly making friends, hopefully, that you then suddenly start to see those relationships grow again. But I'm still in touch with an awful lot of people that I worked with for such a long time, and I'd like to think that will stay the same, because as well as colleagues, they were genuinely friends as well. Things I miss, I got to do a little bit of traveling, so I don't get to do that anymore. I might have a little bit once the world starts to properly open up again, and it will be to destinations that I've never been before, like India and places like that. So for me, that offers an exciting opportunity, learn new cultures, new places to go, and that's essentially what travel is all about, isn't it? Broadening our minds and learning things that we don't already know.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that, Andy. I think we might have lost Rian there again. Either that, or he's just very good at playing stats.
Oh no, it is. It's really good to see you guys all happy as well, because I know that you've all had, it's not been easy, has it? And it's really nice to hear and see you all so passionate about doing something different and succeeding in it. And yeah, it's great. I think it will be really inspirational to a lot of people that are watching this as well. So from my perspective, thank you for agreeing to do this as well.
Yeah, and from my side, Emma, I would just say that yourself and Urbanberry was clearly by far the most proactive of recruitment agencies.
Thank you.
There's very few recruitment agencies that I talk to who proactively reached out after a bit of time. And I think you guys are the only ones to do that. So if anyone is watching and is interested in recruitment agencies, have my vote every time.
I didn't even pay him to say that. Thanks, Chris. Oh, thank you. Do you know what, though? It was for us as well. We got to speak to people that we never would have spoke to before. So our paths may never have crossed. And that was really nice. And we've learned a lot from all of you guys as well. I mean, we had to change, everything that we were used to doing. Like I say, it wasn't a job that we normally had to do. People would come to us and say, I've been made redundant. And we go, okay, we've got this, this, and this. And this time it was, I've been made redundant. And we were like, okay, then, well, we don't have anything, but we can help you with, and let's look at this. So it was a massive learning curve for us as recruiters as well, to change the way that we were with people. So
I think from my side, Emma, we wouldn't have crossed paths because I wasn't from business travel.
Yeah.
And, I sort of knew that when we first got in contact, that it was unlikely things would happen that side.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, it worked, and your proactivity was very appreciated.
Thank you.
Just to add on that point, and what Emma and sort of Chris have said, is that I think there's good reason for everyone to be really, really positive about how things are going to go. I mean, as more people from the travel industry move into other industries, companies will realise that they're getting good people, and people that are necessarily from the travel industry are going to be looked upon in a different way.
Yeah.
But also, consequently, if people are looking to, stay in travel in the future, the way the job market's going to be going, it's going to be difficult because a lot more people from travel will be working in other sectors now. So you might even find that eventually wages start to, increase for staff, or, there's even more opportunity in terms of earning potential in travel. So I think you've just got to try and look for the positives in everything, and there will be opportunities one way or another.
Yeah.
That's a really good message, David. So, yeah, I mean, Alex was even mentioning that he was pretty much looking for ex-flight center staff only after realizing how good they were. So that's very good. I apologize again for my dropping out and dropping back in. My internet provider, whom I shan't name, decided today it's a good day to play around. So there we go. So we need to wrap up. I mean, you guys were just naturally continuing the conversation there. So what's your message to those who are still in that position? And David, that one is a great one. Are there any other closing comments from anybody else on the panel today?
Can anybody hear me?
We can hear you. Yes, I don't think it's your microphone that's scratching, Megan. I don't know where that noise is coming from, but maybe that's the mouse gnawing on the line.
Maybe. I can hear you in the last 5 minutes, so I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me a part of this and for everybody sharing your stories. And I think it's so important for so many people to hear this and build some confidence and give them some inspiration as they move forward and whatever that next step is.
Now, thank you for being here today, Megan. It was nice to meet you as well. So thank you for your contribution and for mentioning some resources as well. So that's great. Thank you very much. Emma, there were so many shout outs to you. I wanted to bring some of them onto the screen. I don't know how that actually works, but because I'm new to the software as well, but there were loads of shout outs to Emma to say how amazing you were and how great a listener you are, and that was echoed by the people on the panel as well. So well done for doing a great job there.
Oh, thank you. It's very sweet.
Thank you for helping set this all up together. We do want to say to people in the travel industry that have to leave the industry and work elsewhere, your skills are transferable. You are amazing. You can do 1,000 jobs. Market yourself as to what you are and what you can do. And, talk to others, talk to people around you, and don't hesitate to say you need help. So, stay positive and get out there. There's plenty of work.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to reach out. Anybody, more than happy to help.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Rhiannon, I was just going to say thank you to you, for just inviting us all to join this session, because I really feel like, there's a lot of people that are probably still struggling. They don't want to transition industry. And, all of us on here, we've had really good sort of success stories in terms of moving into other industries to show people can done. So I think thanks to you for highlighting it and making us obviously do this.
Yeah. My pleasure. Thank you very much for taking part. And, the rest of this week is full of other sessions as well. So just have a look at my profile on LinkedIn. You'll see the other sessions. So with that, I want to say thank you. We'll play a little exit clip, and thanks for your time. It's really, really appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.